Good evening, everybody. This is Ron Turner, and I'd like to begin tonight's podcast. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. What is FrontRunner 2020? Well, briefly, it's something that we've started to create a community for candidates and the people who support them before they're running for office, as well as during campaigns and after their victories. It looks at developing a personal brand and making sure people are prepared before they make the decision to file for office. And it looks at someone's personal journey. And like I said, we hope to make this a community. We're starting with this weekly programming. So let me introduce Nancy Lloyd. Nancy has many years of experience as a campaign consultant in all aspects of campaign management. The reason I invited her to join us tonight on our second episode is because this is central to what I see FrontRunner 2020 being. That is, to look at someone's personal development, develop a checklist and an assessment to make an action plan. Here, Nancy, are you ready?
Yeah, what I'd like to say to everybody is I started kind of maybe where some of you have been. I got involved in my neighborhood. I got involved with my crime watch, got involved with my homeowners association. I got involved in a big movement that really made a difference to my neighborhood, and I found out how to make the pieces work. And it seems a real waste if you have those kinds of background experiences that you don't go on and extend yourself into helping out into your community. And that's really my basic background. I was a grassroots person trying to make a difference for the people that I knew that were my neighbors and to the community in which I lived. And so my experience is based on person-to-person development. And that's what this assessment's going to be about. Are you thinking in the right mode? Have you thought about all the questions you really need to bring to the forefront to decide if you're really fit, ready to go for your candidacy, and what else do you need to build up to get there? That's it.
Okay. Well, folks, the way we're going to do this is we have a series of questions that will invite your response as we go. So I will ask the question, and then Nancy will look at the results and give her response and advice for action items and next steps. I'm clear on why I want to run for elected office, and I'm aware of the scope of the position's authority. Make your selection. Definitely. Working on it. Considered but little action taken. Not sure. Haven't thought about it. Again, I'm clear on why I want to run for elected office, and I am aware of the scope of this position's authority. Definitely. Working on it. Considered but little action taken. Not sure. Haven't even thought about it. There you go, Nancy.
Okay. Well, you guys are pretty much in line with what I'd like to see. You really do need to get up on what your job is in whatever role you're taking. Especially in local and nonpartisan elections, the scope of what you can actually do makes a great deal of difference.
You want to have 3 key ideas of how this office can have a positive impact on the community. You want to Google the current office holder and see which boards and commissions are part of this office.
Again, and I've served on boards and commissions and have created relationships within the political structure. Now, I can't tell you how important this is because I've seen people, at least in the Dallas area, get elected to the city council and not understand that they're under the city manager form of government. So when they got on there, they decided trash wasn't picked up right in my area, so they called the department that handled that, and they were going to bring everybody on the floor and tell them exactly how to do it. And the first words out of the department's mouths were, "Sir, I respect your position, but you have to go through this structure to get to me." And it was such a faux pas in the case of 3 different people elected that year to city council that it made the newspapers. So don't think not knowing what you should be doing or how the structure of your office isn't important. And these guys obviously got elected in a major city, but they still didn't know what they were really supposed to do or how the governmental structure really worked. You need to know that where you're going to put your time and your effort is someplace where you can live out your passions and the skills you bring to the table. And the best way to do that is to serve on boards and commissions and create relationships within that political structures.
Okay, let me bring up the next question. I'm aware of the cash flow history of running for this office. I'm willing to raise the funds required. Definitely, working on it, considered but little action taken, not sure, haven't even thought about it. Again, I'm aware of the cash flow history of running for this office. I am willing to raise the funds required. Definitely, working on it, considered but little action taken, not sure, haven't even thought about it.
Okay, yeah, that's good, because no matter how incredibly brilliant you are or how honed in you are on that job, 50% of you definitely know what has been the cash flow in that office. Now I'm going to warn you, there's years ago goes up, years goes down, but these are the things you need to know. Do you know the authority through which you must file? Have you chosen a treasurer? And a treasurer is kind of an interesting choice, because you can either pick a treasurer that's what you call, quote, a name, which is someone who's recognized within the community you're going to run in, and they're going to automatically draw kind of some panache to your campaign, or it can be just a really good friend who you trust, who you know when you have to file these reports, they'll look over them with you and make sure they're okay. Do you understand the deadlines in the financial reporting for this office? Because it's not just the money that goes in and out of your campaign. There are also financial reports you have to produce that display your net worth, what you owe, what you don't owe to the world. And that's something that's always outlined in every state that I know of, so that you can find out what financial reporting is going to be required before you run for this office. And have you reviewed the previous candidates' filings, if they're available? In Dallas, for the most part, most races are online, and you can just go download and see who supported different candidates, and that kind of gives you a why. Because sometimes you'll go look at sometimes we've had 3 candidates running in the same races, and you can look at it, and you'll see the same people give to all the candidates because they want to have a buy-in on the candidate. You'll see that some people are supported by more than one group or another group, and that becomes part of your strategy on can you really raise these funds. But those are just some hints on raising the funds, but the most important thing is to know the authority that you must file through. Read that financial filing report carefully, because it's a place where you can really get tripped up and it can cause you some problems.
Okay, next question. My family or significant others are prepared for the potential invasion of privacy and emotional stresses of public life. Definitely working on that area, considered but little action taken, not sure, haven't thought about it. Again, my family or significant others are prepared for the potential invasion of privacy and emotional stresses of public life. Definitely working on that area, considered but little action taken, not sure, haven't thought about it.
Wow, you guys are doing good. Actually, this is a statement I make my candidates sign off on, because there's nothing worse than getting into a campaign with a candidate and finding out that they didn't know that meant that they would ever be home on a Saturday again, or that they had a lot of other things that would be going on in their life. Sometimes the family feels diminished or less taken care of by the candidate because they're going off and doing this thing. I really, really am hard on candidates when I'm going to run them. So, first point, make sure all your family obligations, trips, vacations, and cruises are over. Because once you go into this cycle of running for office, it's a full-time, more than full-time job. Evaluate the needs of your paying jobs and see if you can meet the needs of your constituents. I had a candidate who thought he wasn't going to have a primary, ended up having a primary, and it caused him great stress because he couldn't get out and meet his constituents the way he thought he could. He'd made one deal with his job, the world tossed him another deal, and he didn't win. Run a background check on yourself and find out all outstanding issues. I have a really good story about this that will make you want to go do this. I had a candidate, and he'd done this before I even met him. He'd run a background check on himself. He ran it on every state and every place he'd ever lived. And he found one place where they thought property taxes hadn't been paid, but he could prove that they had been paid where he'd lived previously, so he didn't have any issues with that. Any outstanding taxes, library fines, ambulance rides you haven't paid for, that will all pop up, and it will block you from being able to run. But the thing that popped up for him was he found out that he had a child he didn't know he had. And it actually wasn't his child. He had to fly back to the state he lived in. An old college girlfriend used his name on the birth certificate because she didn't want to implicate the professor that was helping her build her career.
What?
And once he got, yeah, I know. And what happened was he went back, met with her. The child apparently knew that he was now a grown man, knew all of his life that mom had messed with his birth certificate. And so he went to court and had them actually change the document. So no one, can you imagine being halfway through your race and saying, why didn't you ever pay child support on this kid? Not something you want to run into. Now, what commitments to your work and your family are you really, 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 truly willing to sacrifice to run for office? And that can become a real issue. I had a candidate who found out 3 days after he filed his wife was pregnant. They both sat down and talked about it and decided to go ahead with it. But we had to make significant changes in how we campaigned because it was her first pregnancy. And she found out she was pregnant the day he filed, and she was giving birth 2 days after he finished his race. So that took a lot of time, and that was the pregnancy and the campaign. That's a lot on a family. So you need to think about those kind of commitments and what are you willing to put up with and what your family really willing to put up with.